There are two questions that you're going to find in every single interview, no matter what field you're doing, no matter what stage of your career. These questions are, tell me about yourself and why do you want to work here? These are going to be more important than any technical question because it conveys your ability to fit into the culture as well as your ability to tell a story and speak in coherent sentences. Although this answer is going to be different for everyone because everyone has different backgrounds, everyone has different reasons for why they want to do a job, there are still really important principles that you should try to think about as you're constructing your own answer. There are some things that'll sound better to an interviewer, and there are certain kind of storytelling techniques that you should keep in mind so you can tell a nice, concise story. So in this video, we're going to tell you how to answer this question, how to answer why do you want to work at this firm, and then we'll give you a sample answer for why you might want to work at Goldman Sachs or why you might want to work at a place like RBC. So let's talk about how to answer this question. I'm a pretty strong believer that your answer should be between 30 and 60 seconds. I've been on both sides of the interview table, and if it's any shorter than this, you're not really conveying that much unique information. If it's any longer, then you might just be droning on, and it's harder to kind of be concise about it. I've definitely received this as mock interview feedback as well. If your answer is too long, you might be telling them stuff that they don't really want to know about. You want to touch gently from a high level on a couple of different topics and allow them to sort of ask you follow-up questions. Really, your goal is to make it as much as a conversation as possible where there's good dialogue and there's good flow, because really that's how you make the interview more enjoyable. That's how you make yourself more memorable. And it's a very important hallmark of being a professional. For why this firm, you should try to stick to maybe 2 or 3 discrete points. And when I say discrete point, I mean something that you can provide a tangible reason to that you can kind of thoroughly explain. So some examples would be maybe the firm is growing really quickly. Maybe you want to work in healthcare and that firm is the best in healthcare in the entire world. Maybe you really like the kind of SPAC transactions that they've been doing. Whatever it is, it should be pretty specific and allow you to kind of elaborate on your answer. And I think when you mention these points, it should be related to the business engine. Now, what I mean by this is that the more critical it is to the company making money, the more relevant it is to mention it. So the core of your answer shouldn't be kind of like cute ephemeral answers like you like their logo or you think they have nice formatting or the commercials that they put out are kind of interesting. You want to mention something that is very critical to them making money or how their business operates as a whole. So when you're answering the question, the best way to come up with a unique and crafted answer is to make something that is distinctive to that firm. If you're going to line up all of the firms, if you're going to do comps on all these firms essentially, why would this particular firm stick out? Think about how it distinguishes itself in the competitive landscape. How does it view itself differently? You want to hone into whatever that characteristic is and try to give it back to them as a concrete answer. For example, if you're interviewing with a European private equity firm that is just moved to the United States, maybe you could say that you want to be part of a global company that has a lot of runway to grow, as well as global operations. The second thing I would say is, what are employees the most proud of? This is why it's so valuable to talk to people that work at those firms, because they'll tell you straight up why they're working at those firms, what is attractive to them. So if you can get that answer from some people and spin it back to them in the interview room in a genuine sounding way, it's going to be a home run. One thing, for example, is at Goldman, they sometimes pride themselves in having a no-jerk culture and how a lot of people are very nice and very friendly. You could say how you've met a lot of people at Goldman and how you're genuinely impressed with how much more empathetic and how much more helpful they've been. I would say third thing, you should almost always say culture. Kind of relatedly, everyone in finance kind of wants to view themselves as the good guy. So if you say back to them that you've been really impressed with how helpful and genuine and nice everyone has been, they're going to want to hear that. And everyone kind of likes to hear that they're a nice and good person, so it'll be a welcome thing to say. And I would say if that firm is not nice at all, if they're very notorious for being cutthroat or super intense, don't say that the culture is very good or very friendly. Instead, say that people are extremely smart and you feel that everyone is motivated and that you'll fit in. So let's walk through an illustrative example. And let's say you are fortunate enough to get an interview with Goldman's TMT group. You might start by saying you're interested in working for a global platform because that'll enable you to work on the most complex TMT transactions in the world. A lot of the biggest TMT companies in the world today operate in North America, but they also have significant maybe manufacturing operations or R&D housed in Asia. So you can make the point that you're interested in working at a firm that is well respected in both regions because that increases the ability for Goldman to get on those deals. Secondly, maybe you talk about how you're specifically interested in enterprise technology, and Goldman Sachs is clearly the leader in this particular sub-industry. It would be really good to talk about a specific deal, maybe like the Broadcom Symantec deal, which brought together an enterprise security business with a semiconductor business, and mention how very few other investment banks would have the scale to do both the financing as well as the M&A advisory on such a large deal. And of course, especially for Goldman, you should always say the culture. You can say how the leadership evidence through David Solomon seems like a great place to work. Everyone you've met through the recruiting process has been incredibly helpful, and you've heard that there's a no-jerk culture at Goldman, so you think you'll fit in and you think it'll be a great place to grow your career. So in summary, you've mentioned two things about the business model: how it's a global firm and how they dominate in enterprise technology, and you've mentioned the culture. And in my opinion, that's a very solid answer. It's one that shows you have actual understanding of the industry, and they're specific enough that it shows that you've done your homework. And let's go into a second example, because it's really easy to come up with a good answer for why you want to work at the industry leader. But I'm trying to tell you that every firm, every office is going to have different strengths, and you need to pick out those strengths and put them into an answer. So let's say you have an interview with RBC M&A. This is a firm that's definitely growing in the United States, but it's not particularly the leader, and I'm telling you, you can still come up with a pretty thoughtful answer. So if you're in the interview room, maybe you can start by saying that you want to be at the investment bank with the best growth trajectory, and you've seen how RBC has accumulated the most market share over the last 5 years relative to every other investment bank. And you want to be on a rocket ship. You want to be at a place where not only are the juniors allowed to continue to grow their own careers, but the senior people are constantly looking for ways to improve the firm. And if you've talked to a couple of people and if you've done some Googling online, you'll see that RBC, a lot of the times they win deals by pretty aggressive lending. And I think it would be amazing if you walked into the room and said that you really admire their lending-oriented business model. And they're beholden to less regulations than some other US bulge brackets, so they're able to win a greater variety of deals. You could also mention how they have a great Canadian foundation and other complementary business units that help investment banking thrive. And lastly, you can just say how the culture has been very helpful. Everyone you've met through the process, including the analysts, have been extremely friendly, and you think it's a good place where you can develop your own career. So it should be obvious now, but there's an element of research that you need to do before you walk into the interview room. I would say you should spend even just 15 to 30 minutes researching that firm on Google. Read the biggest articles that have been written about the firm lately so you understand the latest hires, where the business is headed, where it might be expanding, or opportunistic areas of growth. The next thing you should do, which I think is even more important, is you should try to speak with at least one person at every firm you're interviewing with. If you walk into a room cold without any information of what the dynamic is like at the team or what the individual employees think about the firm, you're going to be at a huge information disadvantage. So you want to at least speak with one person. Ideally, you can impress them and they'll be kind of the person that bats for you when they're making the hiring decision. But at the very least, you need to have one conversation, one coffee chat, or one phone call before you get into the interview room. And the last thing you should know is at least one deal that the firm has done lately. You need to understand the basic details of the deal. So who is the buyer? Who is the seller? What was the enterprise value? What did the businesses do? What was the general strategic rationale? It should only take you about 10 minutes to do. You can just take some quick notes, and before you walk into the interview room, just reference those notes. In total, it really shouldn't take you that much time to prepare. And once you've done these steps, you should already have a pretty good answer for why you want to work there. And I'll tell you, you can find out all of this information if you just search online. If you just read a couple of articles about a firm, you've already done way more work than a lot of your peers. You just get that down to 3 concise bullet points and you're good to go. So I do hope that this video was helpful for you. And honestly, structuring high quality, qualitative answers is a skill that you're going to use for a long time. I still use this general framework when I walk into the interview room because I know I'm always going to have something to say. If you'd like to learn more about finance recruiting or private equity, you can check out our courses and our blog posts at peakframeworks.com. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.